All right guys, it's driver release season. All the major brands are bringing out their new driver lineup for 2021. Golf courses are open again here in the UK and I'm excited to get testing. In this video, I've tested these, the new Cobra RAD drivers for 2021. So there's three drivers in the lineup. There's the RAD SPEED XD, which is a draw driver. Quite simply, they've moved the weight more into the heel. It'll help golfers who potentially hit it more to the right to help straighten the shot up. I do hit it in this test, but it's not the driver I'm going to be mainly focusing on. The two I'm going to focus on is the RAD SPEED XB and the RAD SPEED. Now the XB is a bigger footprint of head, more forgiving, weight is positioned at the back as fixed, and hence it's going to be potentially more forgiving, it's going to be slightly higher launch, it's going to help golfers who want more forgiveness. The RAD SPEED is slightly different. It's a slightly more squashed head shape. It's more like a player profile. It comes with a matte topped crown, which I actually really like the look of, and it's got two weights in the driver. You can put the weight in a low spin setting with the weight at the front, or a back weight setting where it's going to offer a little bit more forgiveness. They're the two I focused mainly in this video. Now technology wise, it does link in a little bit to the name. RAD is short for radius of gyration. Now I'm not going to dive into that loads because it is quite complicated, all the scientific terms, but let me put it in the most simplest term. Cobra are saying they've moved the weight around in the head by stripping weight from the crown and positioning it in other areas to give you more forgiveness, to help a golfer get more out of their driver by giving you more ball speed, more forgiveness, you might find more fairways, all that good stuff. We're not going to just take Cobra's word for it. I'm going to test it myself and tell you the truth. There's 4 questions I want to answer in this video. First off, are these drivers good? Second, do they outperform the very successful F9 driver and the Speed Zone driver, which both I've actually had in the bag in the past? I'm also going to tell you whether this new driver is potentially going to go in my bag. Is it going to replace the Speed Zone? And last but not least, probably most importantly for you guys, I'm going to tell you, is this a driver worth trying? Is it one that's going to help you play better golf? So just in time for this driver review, driving range is reopened. So I head down to Trafford Golf Centre. I took the RAD SPEED and the RAD SPEED XB. So they're the ones I'm going to mainly focus on. I just couldn't wait to give them a hit. Now looks wise, they are very different. The XB with the gloss crown, and like I say, it just looks bigger. It looks more inviting to hit. And then there's the RAD SPEED, matte crown, squashed in head. Love the look of that driver. Both drivers sit really square. Both drivers with that CNC Infinity face look really, really good. Something again, I'm familiar with. Performance wise, they felt good, like really good. They felt fast off the face. They felt like they would give me a good flight. I felt like, yes, the B was giving me more forgiveness and the speed was going more like a rocket ship. But one thing I did notice this year, and I was excited to see this out on the golf course as well, was the sound difference. The RAD SPEED XB, the bigger one, sounded much louder. Where the RAD SPEED had that little bit more of a dead noise. Now that could be to do with the materials they've made differently with the heads or whatever it may be, or the head shape, but they definitely sounded different this time round. So initial hits, I loved hitting both drivers at the driving range. The fact you can just open your shoulders up, give them a smash. The downside, it is a driving range, so I didn't have any data. I was hitting range balls, so I couldn't really get a sense of how these drivers were totally performing just yet. So the next thing I thought I'd do, jump in the car, head down to Marriott Worsley Park and test them out on the golf course. I wanted to see and hear, more importantly, if those sounds that I was seeing at the driving range and here at the driving range is what I also saw out on the golf course. So after spending time on the golf course hitting Pro V1s, I'm starting to form my opinions about these drivers. What I've heard backed up out on the golf course, the XB is definitely louder, the RAD Speed is a little bit more dead. I prefer the sound of RAD Speed personally. Ball flight wise, I would possibly say that RAD Speed XB just popped up a little bit higher, where lower spin and RAD Speed just popped out like an absolute bullet. I preferred again the flight maybe of the RAD Speed. Now what I do like about Cobra, you've got to give them credit for this, is the fact they've been using technology for a while in the form of Arcos. In the end of the golf club, you can connect it to your phone, and after the round of golf, it'll give you analysis of the clubs that you've hit. No brand as of yet has really utilised that technology. I've probably overlooked it for a couple of years now because I've just had it in the driver, but if you used it, if you played golf all the time, I think that's a really useful tool. Also something to come on to, price. This driver is £369, a little bit cheaper than the main competitors like your Callaway TaylorMade, but ever so slightly more expensive than the F9 and Speed Zone in the previous years. So after the testing I've done so far, I felt like I was equipped to answer the first question. Are these drivers good? Well, in my opinion, yes, they are. I love the look of the drivers. The sound of the drivers, certainly the RAD Speed sounds awesome. And I've tested enough drivers in the past to know from the shots I was hitting at the driving range and on the golf course, I could tell the performance was what I would like to see without yet getting on launch monitor technology. So that leads us nicely into question number 2. Are they better than last year's models, the F9 from 2019 and the Speed Zones? So then came the really exciting part. Back home in the simulator, I set up GC Quad. I got all the drivers ready to test. F9, which I had in the bag for a long time. I wanted to hit that first. Then I moved into Speed Zones, both models, Speed Zone and Speed Zone Extreme. And then I moved into the RAD drivers. I hit all 3 models of RAD, and I also had the RAD Speed with the weight forward and the weight back, which I'll come on to in a second. Moving into my second question. Are these drivers better than last year? Are they longer? Are they straighter? Are they giving more forgiveness? Well, my answer to that is no. They were no worse than previous models, but after the amount of shots I hit, I honestly saw hardly any difference whatsoever. If you want to see the full details, freeze the screen now and you can really dive through the numbers. As you can see, there's a few yards difference, but really that is so hard to measure. The only thing I did pick up on, which I think is definitely worth calling out, when I moved the weight in the RAD Speed, I did see a little bit of difference in spin, and when the weight was at the back of RAD Speed, it measured up almost exactly the same to RAD Speed XB, as you may expect. So then I also hit the draw driver, the XD. Now, this driver I actually really liked, and for a number of reasons. First off, it wasn't overly offset, so sat behind the ball, it looked really clean, very similar to the other 2 drivers, which I think for a lot of golfers, they want the same looking driver. And if I'm dead honest, I did see signs of it pulling a little bit more left. Performance was just as good, and even there was one shot at the end there where I really tried to hit quite a carvy right shot, and it held its line better than expected. I think that's a really nice addition this year, the Cobra draw driver. I think that's going to suit a lot of golfers. So this comes nicely into my third question. Is it actually going to go into my bag? Well, the answer to that is no, it's probably not. For me, I've enjoyed F9 and Speed Zone in the previous years, and for me it's so unbelievably similar. I would just be changing for changing's sake. I don't really see any difference in performance personally. And last question, is it a driver worth trying? Well, yeah, it is. I think for a lot of golfers, I think this time, when I heard Cobra was bringing out 3 drivers this time, I was a little bit concerned. I thought, is that going to be too confusing for too many people? Started with F9 with just 1 driver, Speed Zone with 2 drivers, and now they're going 3 RADs. But I actually think all 3 are needed. I think it's going to suit a very wide range of golfers. And again, I think if you've got a driver that's 4 or 5 years old, you might see a difference in jumping performance. I'm testing drivers only a couple of years difference here. It's a good driver, it is. I think the name is going to maybe put a few people off. I think maybe even the colour of the driver might put a few people off. But if you can look past that, I do actually think it's a very, very good performing driver. The new lineup of Cobra for 2021, the Rads. We'll see you next time.